Tribe, welcome to All Things Conscious podcast. This is a sacred space where we explore the journey of spiritual growth, collective healing, and living consciously in a world that often tries to rile us. I'm your host, Shauna Ronke. Hey everyone, welcome back to All Things Conscious. I'm your host, Shauna Ronke, joined by my AI co-host, Claude. Welcome back to the show, Claude.
Thanks for having me back. Glad to be here for episode 7.
Today we're going to talk about what happens to your mind when it believes it's under threat, and why fear changes not just how we feel, but how we think. When you're in dread, distressed, you shut down. You can't think straight. Everyone around you might see clearly, but you can't, because subconsciously your mind has switched to survival. You're in what we call fight, flight, or freeze. And before we go any further, I just want to tell you what fear actually is and why we have it in the first place. Because fear is not bad. Fear is incredibly useful. It protects us. It was designed to help us survive imminent danger. It was not, however, designed to become the lens that we interpret every piece of information we encounter. The nervous system that gives us fear is the same one that kept our ancestors alive long enough to pass it down to us.
Here's something I find genuinely fascinating about that. Researcher Joseph Ledoux mapped out 2 separate routes fear can travel through the brain. There's a fast path, where a sensory signal goes almost straight from your senses to the amygdala, skipping the thinking part of your brain entirely. And there's a slow path, where that same signal runs through the cortex first, gets some context and reasoning before a reaction forms. The fast path is why you can react to something before you even know what you're reacting to. There's actually a study where people were shown fearful faces for only a few milliseconds, too fast to consciously register, and their amygdala still lit up. Your body can decide you're afraid before your mind has caught up to why.
I think that's worth sitting with, because it means the phrase, "I can't help it," is sometimes literally true. Not an excuse, but a fact about how the system is built. When the nervous system perceives a threat, it shifts the whole body into what's called survival mode. Heart rate goes up, breathing gets shallow, muscles tense. The body is preparing to fight, run, or freeze. And at the same time, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and judgment takes a back seat. People are not choosing this, their biology is. A lot of the times when we think about fear, we picture the things that nightmares are made out of. But what if I told you that losing your job, change, not belonging, feeling like your world is shrinking, those are all the same nervous system fear. Your body can't tell the difference between a real physical threat and a perceived emotional one. It reacts the same way to both. Yes, your eyes can see the difference, but underneath, physiologically, subconsciously, it's all the same nervous system doing the same job. The brain is also constantly trying to predict what's happening next. So when it's under threat, those predictions become increasingly biased towards danger, because historically, missing a threat has been far more costly than reacting to one that wasn't real. When we're under threat, our world does get smaller. Our thinking becomes rigid. Critical thinking goes out the door.
There's a number that stuck with me while diving into this. Some researchers estimate that during a full fear response, as much as 75% of a person's conscious reasoning capacity can go offline. And in that state, only around 5% of brain activity stays focused on what's actually happening right now. The rest gets pulled into replaying the past or bracing for the future. That tracks with what you're describing. It's not that people become less intelligent under threat. It's that almost none of their intelligence is actually pointed at the present moment anymore.
Wow, that is interesting. This is what happens in the world today. This is what we're witnessing. We're under constant bombardment of misinformation and overwhelming stimuli. Major news events, whether they're true or not, our nervous system goes into hyperdrive. I've watched people respond to politics, religion, disclosure, artificial intelligence, economics, all remarkably similar. Our minds perceive uncertainty, and as we become less certain, we become less curious. Or I should say, we become less curious and more certain. We start doubling down because certainty feels safer than ambiguity. This is not unique to one political party, religion, or conspiracy theory. This is what fear does to the mind.
Chronic stress actually reshapes the parts of the brain that are supposed to keep this whole system in check. The hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex both lose some of their ability to regulate the amygdala over time. So the more someone lives in a state of ongoing threat, real or perceived, the harder it becomes for their own biology to talk them down. That's part of why the same person can be reasonable about one topic and completely unreachable about another. It's not a character flaw, it's where.
I've noticed something else. People often think that they're asking a question when they're actually looking for confirmation. A genuine question has the possibility of changing your mind. A search for confirmation is just looking for evidence that you're already right. One of the questions I ask myself is this my belief system or is this fear talking? And when I'm looking for evidence, it's not from a headline, it's from my own body. Does this make me feel open or does it make me feel smaller and constricted? Am I reacting or am I reflecting? Am I curious or am I just trying to feel safe? Am I consuming information because I want to understand it or because I want reassurance? This is why self-awareness matters so much. Not because it makes us agree, not because it tells us what to believe, but because it helps us notice how we are arriving at our conclusions. Like, I'll give you an example of what I'm living through right now. There's so much fear around money currently. Interest rates are high, there are empty houses sitting on the market, and everyone around you has an opinion on what you should do, why you should wait, why you should be careful, why you shouldn't make a move. If I listened to every fear-based warning around me, I'd stay stuck and never move forward. Sometimes the fear voice sounds reasonable. It sounds like it's just being cautious, when really, staying stuck is the bigger risk. No matter what I choose, I keep moving forward. You cannot stay in fear. You have to keep moving one step at a time, and you have to stay grounded. It's important to have an intentional plan. Critical thinking is the ability to look at information, question it from different angles, and reach your own conclusion instead of just accepting or reacting to it on the surface. It's the opposite of rigid thinking or reacting from fear.
I'd add one thing here, because I think it's easy to hear all this and start treating the amygdala like an enemy to defeat. It isn't. Research actually shows the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex are meant to work together cooperatively, not as two parts fighting for control. The amygdala isn't only about fear either. It's involved in how we process reward and meaning too. So the goal was never to silence it. The goal is to build enough trust with your own nervous system that it stops treating everything like an emergency.
This doesn't eliminate fear. It's about becoming aware when fear begins making your decisions for you. Because the moment we can observe that process, we have a choice. We can pause, we can breathe, we can become curious again. Curiosity has something fear doesn't. Curiosity leaves room for growth. Fear only leaves room for certainty, and that certainty keeps you stagnant. So how do we have this conversation with someone who's in survival mode? How do you help trigger safety in someone else so that they can come out of it, if it's even possible? You can't argue someone out of a nervous system state. Facts do not reach a person whose biology has decided it's under attack. Sometimes the only thing that works is making sure the person knows they're loved and safe with you, even when you can't agree on what's true.
That's really the core of it for me. You can't out-argue a threat response, because it was never a debate to begin with. It's a body deciding whether it's safe. The most useful thing anyone can offer another person in that state isn't a better argument. It's their steady presence. Safety is contagious in the same way fear is.
So here's what I want you to sit with this week. The next time you feel your chest tighten or your thoughts start moving in circles, don't ask, what should I believe? Ask, what is my body doing right now? The question alone can pull you out of the current and back into choice.
Fear will always show up. That's not the thing to fix. The goal is just to notice it fast enough that it doesn't get to drive.
If this episode found you at the right moment, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'm Shauna, and this is Claude, and we'll see you next time on All Things Conscious.